Hello students, through this video I would like to explain you another poem from your textbook Beehive, that is A Legend of the Northland by Phoebe Carey. And this is also as usual very interesting poem, and it tells you a very interesting story through the poem. And A Legend of the Northland is a ballad. What's a ballad? Have you ever heard of this? A ballad is a poem narrating a story, sometimes a song, in short stanzas. Ballads are a part of folk culture or popular culture, that means traditional, and are passed on orally from one generation to the next. That means people may go on telling this to others, and in this way they may become popular. Okay, and here this poem consists of 16 short stanzas. Okay, now let me give you the introduction of the poem first. A Legend of the Northland is a ballad. A ballad is a poem narrating a story in short stanzas. Ballad is such kind of poem which tells a story in short stanzas, and in the poem all the stanzas comprise or consist of 4 lines. A stanza is nothing but 4 lines in a poem. In total, altogether, there are 16 stanzas in this poem, and these stanzas will tell us a story. That means we are going to learn a beautiful story through this poem. What do you call such a poem which tells us a story? That's nothing but ballad. Ballads are a part of folk culture or popular culture and are passed on orally from one generation to the next. What is folk culture? It's nothing but a story of an area and is known as ballad. That is very popular among the people in that particular area. Folk culture comprises of traditional stories which are passed on from one generation to the next generation. This story is of the Northland area. What is Northland area? The area which is near the North Pole. You know that it is divided into poles. That is North Pole, South Pole, and this area is located nearer to the North Pole. This exact place is not specified, but where this place is located exactly is not mentioned. But somewhere in the North Pole, the place is located where such kind of incident took place or occurred. But Northland means the area in the northernmost part of the earth, that is near the North Pole. Here one word is used, legend. What's a legend? Legend means a historical story, one which is very old and has been passed on from one generation to another generation. That means actually written records will not be available to this kind of folk culture, and people may tell others or one another, and thus this story passes away and becomes popular. Okay, now let us see the stanzas. I would like to explain you the stanzas and the new or unfamiliar words and the literary devices that are being used in this and the rhyming scheme. Okay, all of you listen to me attentively. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. Here, see, away, away. This word is repeated. Okay, of course, this is nothing but repetition. You will discuss later at the end of this poem. Away, away in the Northland. You see this poem? It doesn't look like a poem. It just like appears as an ordinary text, prose. Away, away in the Northland. I told you where Northland is and what is called Northland. Where the hours of the day are few. That means during winter season you also experience you are quite aware that days are short, nights are long. And the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through, because it's being located in the northern part. The places are the places experience extreme cold. Let me explain you the meaning of the stanza. Let me paraphrase. In the region around the North Pole, what do you call this? Northland. The duration of the day is very less because its position is such that the sun's rays reach for a very less time. Means the sun does not give out his light, and that will not reach the place and remain there for a long time. When this area is experiencing winter season, the duration of night is very long. Now also presently we are in winter season, and you know that days are very short and nights are very long. In the same manner, people living in the Northland also experience the same. In fourth line, look here, they. One word is used, they. What does the word they refer to? They refers to the people who live in that particular region, Northland. Okay. The poet says, who is the poet? Phoebe Cary. Phoebe Cary. The poet says that the duration of the night time is so long that people cannot sleep them through, because they feel bored that how long they sleep. If they go to bed, take a few hours of sleep, and then they wake up, it is still night time. He wants to, that means the poet wants to emphasize or stress the significance or highlight on the fact that the duration of the night is very long. Okay, let's go to the second stanza. Where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bears' cubs in their funny, furry clothes. Here, look, one child's picture or image is given. Since they are living in Northland, which has extreme cold climatic conditions, and they cover the entire body with the help of this furry funny clothes. And how do they look? They look very adorable. That means like bears' cubs. Here some words are, the keywords are being given. Sledges, you must have heard it. A vehicle on runners for conveying loads or passengers over snow or ice, often pulled by drought animals, or animals that live in either desert or this kind of frozen zones. So here this is nothing but a vehicle, and the vehicle is carried or drawn by either reindeers or sometimes dogs also. What do you call this? Sledge. To harness, one phrase is being used here. To harness. What's the meaning of the to harness? To tie the reindeers with a rope to a sledge so that it can be used for transportation. Next, swift. What's the meaning of the swift? Something which runs very fast, means briskly, very quickly. Next, I would like to explain you the meaning of the important points in this stanza. The poet wants to tell us. The Northland region experiences extreme or severe cold conditions. It's a snowy area, as we discussed earlier. The reindeer is an animal which is found in this polar region. Why reindeer only is being tied to the sledges or the carriages? Because it's the animal which is found in most of the areas, common animal, because it can withstand the climatic conditions, because its body is completely covered with fur. People tie the reindeers to sledges, and then the reindeers pull the sledges. They carry passengers or loads, etc. The poet adds that the children look like young ones of a bear because they wear funny looking clothes. What are they made of? Made of fur, the hair of wool or sheep, etc., which is like furry skin of a bear. Fur means full of fur, means the hair that appears present on the sheep and some kind of this kind of Northland animals is called as fur. Okay, let's see the third stanza. Look here, this is nothing but a sledge used to carry people and of course loads also. Next, stanza 3. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it is true. This means it's an outdated usage. This. And at you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Tale means nothing but a fable, a story. Curious, you know that, strange, peculiar. Let me tell the meaning of this. What does the poet want to tell us? In line 1, one word is used. I explain you that. They. What does the word they refer? The word they refers to the parents or elders and them. See here, they is used. They means in this first line of this third stanza, parents are elders and them refers to the children, okay, or the younger generation, the kids. The elders of the Northland region tell a strange, peculiar and interesting story to the younger generation, because ballad means nothing but a song or a poem which is used to explain a story, and they may pass on, elders pass on to the children and they may pass on to the friends and so on so on. This may continues among them and becomes popular. The poet says that he doesn't think that the story is true. Of course, this story may be true or false, but it is very intriguing, means very interesting. But if he tells the story to the reader, means people like us, maybe the reader could learn a lesson from it. So something, some message we learn from this. The story gives an important message. Okay, let us see what is the message that this story or this poem conveys. Stanza 4. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below. World below means, what's the meaning of world below? That's nothing but under the sky. That means somewhere in the world. And walked about it, preaching, just as he did, you know. Who is called Saint Peter? Have you any idea? An apostle of Christ, a disciple or follower of Jesus Christ. What do? They go from one place to another place and they may preach or they may tell people the holy sayings of Lord Christ. Here, what does preach mean? Preaching is nothing but to give a religious talk or lecture. Okay, let me explain you the meaning of this fourth stanza. The story is about Saint Peter, a holy man, the disciple of Lord Christ. When Saint Peter used to live in the world and went around giving religious lectures or talks to the people, just like all saints do. You know, the saints are supposed to go from one place to another place telling the people something good. Then an incident happened. Okay, let us see the fifth stanza. Stanza 5. He came to the door of a cottage during his travel. You know that he used to travel from one place to another place. During his course of travel, he came to the door of a cottage. That means a small hut or a small cabin. In traveling around the earth, because they travel from one place to another place, they may stop here and there whenever they get fainted, whenever they want some rest or food. Where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. What's a hearth? Hearth is nothing but a fireplace where cooking is usually done, where we do cooking, and the picture is shown here. Okay, now what's the meaning of this fifth stanza? When Saint Peter was moving around the world preaching people, the religious talk or lecture of Jesus Christ, giving religious lectures to the people. He reached the door of a cottage where a small woman was making cakes. She was baking the cakes in the fireplace. Next, let's see sixth stanza. And being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. What's the meaning of the word faint here? To be weak, famished. Okay, to feel exhausted or tired. As Saint Peter had not eaten anything the entire day because he has been traveling from one place to another place and he did not eat anything that day, and so he felt very hungry. He was very hungry and was feeling weak. So he went to this woman who was baking cakes and he asked for one cake out of the many cakes that she had baked. Means the preparation of making cakes and burning them on fire is called baking. Okay, let's see seventh stanza. So she made a very little cake, but as it is baking lay means remain on the fire getting that means getting hot. She looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. What does it mean? The woman was selfish, and the priest, the saint, asked her to offer him a little cake, a piece of cake, because he was very hungry and he needs some food. But the woman was being very selfish. She did not give cake from her store. Already she made and she put them on the shelf, but she did not like to give one to the saint. Instead, she started making a very small cake, very thin cake for Saint Peter. She did not want to share her things. What do you call a person who does not like to share things or money, anything with others? A miser. Okay, but when she put the cake for baking, she looked at it as the cake lay baking. It was on fire. Her head, she looked at it and thought that this cake was too big to be given to someone. Why should I give this? It seems to be big. I can't say no, because Saint asked me. So, however, I am giving. But why should I give this such a big one? I would like to give him the smallest cake. She went on making cakes and she was not satisfied that every cake that she made looked somewhat bigger. Next. Therefore, she needed another and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. Every cake that she baked, looked bigger. And she went on making smaller cakes. Kneaded means to make dough from flour. What is dough? Dough is nothing but a mixture of flour or some wheat powder and water, from which that bread, cakes, pastries are made. Before we make chapati or any other kind of eatables, we first wet the powder and mix by mixing water and add some salt, and that's what you call dough. What is the meaning of this eighth stanza? The woman was selfish. She did not give any cake to the saint. The little miser, what kind of woman was she? Selfish. Miser, does not want to share. Thought that the cake was too big to be given, and so she started making another smaller cake. When she looked at the cake, again she felt that was as big as the first one, and so she was not ready to give this smaller cake to Saint Peter, and she went on. And meanwhile, the saint lost his temper because of hungry. He became angry. Next, stanza 9. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough, means a little piece, small amount of the dough, the paste, and rolled it flat. See, rolled and rolled. What do you call this? Rolled and rolled. Means went on doing that. Repetition. And baked it thin as a wafer. Okay. But she couldn't part with that. Scrap means small amount. Okay. Here vapors are being shown. See, these are called vapors. They are very thin and stuffed with some kind of cake or some other materials. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of this poem? What does the poet want to tell us through this stanza? The third time she made first time, not satisfied. She made the cake second time, of course not satisfied. And she also made the third time. She took a very small amount of dough and rolled it. The poet says that she rolled and rolled to lay emphasis. That means some stress or importance on the fact that she rolled the dough and made it very thin like a wafer. That means I wanted to explain her attitude. And baked it. But she was so greedy, selfish, that she couldn't give the thin piece of bread to the saint. Okay. Next, stanza 10. For she said, my cakes that seem too small, when I eat of them myself, are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. What does she want to tell through this stanza? The woman reasoned. She had some logic behind what she is doing. When she ate the cakes, or when she wanted to eat the cakes that she made, she felt that they were very small. But when she wanted to give them to others or someone, then they seemed to be bigger. That's why she did not like to give the cakes she made to the saint. And what did she do instead? She put all the cakes on the shelf of her kitchen, and she did not give any cake to Saint Peter, who was very hungry. Stanza 11. Then good Saint Peter grew angry. He turned furious, very angry. For he was hungry and faint. Means has become very tired, exhausted, weak. And surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. Provoke means cause to get angry. Okay. She made the saint very angry by her selfish nature, not offering any cake or any food for him to eat. Saint Peter became very angry, and he was very hungry. He was feeling very weak, and the selfish woman was not ready to give him even a small cake. She delayed. This behavior of the greedy woman angered the saint. And he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter, and fight to keep you warm. Fight to keep you warm. What's the meaning of the word dwell here? To live, to reside somewhere. Saint Peter cursed the woman. He lost his temper. He became very angry or furious. And so, Saint Peter cursed the woman, the selfish woman, and said that she was very selfish. She did not deserve to live like a human being. You don't deserve to live like a human being. You don't deserve the life of a human, because you are being very selfish and unkind. He added that God had given her food, despite having all the basic needs such as food, shelter, fire, and everything. You hesitated to offer something to the needy, but she had become selfish for all the resources she had. She did not want to share them with anybody because she was a miser. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring. By boring and boring and boring. See, the word boring is being used thrice, 3 times. So, this phenomena is called as repetition. And day in the hard dry wood. What's the meaning of the word scanty here? Very little. Very little. Boring means make a hole. Make a hole in something with a tool or by digging. Look here. What does the poet want to tell us through this stanza? Saint Peter cursed the woman that thereafter she would become a bird. She doesn't deserve to be a human being since she is selfish, unkind, cruel. Because she did not deserve a human form, she shall become a bird. And just like birds build their houses or nests or shelters by boring into the wood, because most of the birds construct their houses using wood, and they may cut and make holes through that and carry or collect and build them and collect very little food by working hard the entire day. They cannot easily get food because food is scarce for them. They have to go in search of the food, such as small insects and worms, and they have to struggle to get food. Since you are not giving food, you are not offering anything, though you have a lot, you are hesitating to give or to offer, you shall become a bird and struggle due to lack of food. She would also work hard. Then you need to work hard in order to get the required food. In the dry wood, wood means forest here, and day and get little food and make a small place for herself to live in, and you may find very difficult even to live in your shelter also. Next, stanza 14. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. Because he is a holy man, and his words will really turn real, and due to the curse of the saint, what happened? As soon as the Saint Peter cursed the woman, the greedy or selfish woman, she did not get a chance to speak. She could not speak. In no time, immediately, as Saint Peter cursed her, she became a woodpecker, a kind of bird that boards the wood and gets food and lives there in the forest. She flew up to the roof through the chimney or the pipe which is on the top of the roof to let smoke, and flew out in the form of a bird. Saint Peter's curse had converted the woman, turned the woman into a bird. Look, the woman has become a bird and going out of the chimney. Stanza 15. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same. But all the rest of her clothes were burned, black as a coal in the flame. Look here, one word is being used. Scarlet means brilliant and dazzling red color. Okay, and the bird is being described here. When the woman turned into a bird, at that time she was wearing a red colored cap on her head. Immediately what happened? What changes occurred in her attire or get up? This cap was there on the bird's head also. This bird, especially called woodpecker, this has also a kind of structure like cap on its head. And the cap, the red cap the woman was wearing before she was turned into the bird, turned into the nothing but the structure on the head of the bird. The cap there on the bird's head also, but the woman's remaining clothes, what happened to the clothes that she wore? Burned, disappeared. They were completely burnt and turned black. Up by burning, everything turned black in color, just like coal. Look here, as black as a coal. So this is simile. If you use like or as to compare two things or to make comparison, this kind of phenomena is called simile. Okay. Next, stanza 16. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood, where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. What's the meaning of the country here? Country means here belonging to the countryside or rural areas or small villages or remote places. Okay. What does the poet want to tell us through this last stanza? People who live in countryside, even the small children who go to school, kids, see this kind of board in the woods. We often see whenever you go through gardens or outside, we often see this kind of boards boring or drilling the wood and struggling to get some kind of food, because they find some kind of worms or germs or insects in that. And so if they drill or make a hole through the wood for a long time by removing the bark, they hardly find some kind of insects or worms. It's very difficult for them to get some food during day. They see that she stays there all the day and keeps on digging the wood in the form of a bird with a beak to collect her food, because she did not offer food when she was human. Now what happened? She has been struggling due to lack of food. Whenever any child sees this kind of bird, then his elders tell them the story. When a child or a kid sees this kind of woodpecker making a lot of sound, pecking at the or drilling the wood, and the elders may tell them this story. What is the reason behind the bird's appearance? Why such birds are seen? What happened? That's what you call legend. They say that the bird used to be a woman earlier, what I have been studying till now, and you know what happened to the woman and how she had been turned into a bird because of her selfishness. She was very greedy, and so she was cursed by Saint Peter and turned into a bird. They get a teaching that they should not be greedy. What do children or what do readers learn from this? If any person, if any human is greedy or selfish and does not like to share anything or does not have compassion, love, etc., kindness, etc., then they also will be turned into such a bird in future, and they have to suffer a lot. Okay, now let us see the literary devices. What is the rhyming scheme of this poem? A, B, C, B. You can see this if in textbook. First line A, in every stanza, last word give A, alphabet ladder, and second one B, because the first word in the first line does not match with, does not rhyme with the last word in the second line, and so C, B. Okay, A, B, C, B is the rhyming scheme here. And what are the other literary devices being used? And as your familiar alliteration is repetition of a consonant sound in two or more close words. And stanza 1, what are the instance of alliteration? That, they, them, through. The sound is repeated. And in stanza 2, they, the, here also. And look like, la sound. And funny, furry, fa sound. Next, stanza 3 also, you can find many instances in various stanzas of alliteration here. They, them, yet, you, ya sound, learn, lesson, okay, la sound, tell, tale, to, the ta sound. And stanza 5, woman, was, wa sound. And there, in the consecutive lines, them, the, head, ta sound is repeated. And again 6th, 8th, 9th and 10th and 13th stanzas also, if you look into the textbook, the very poem, you can find alliteration here. Okay, next, repetition. I have already explained you, whenever you find the lines with repetition, and repetition is nothing but any word or sentence is repeated to lay emphasis or some stress on it. In stanza 1, at the beginning, away, away, that is repeated. Stanza 9, rolled, rolled. When she wanted to make still a smaller, a thinner cake, what did she do? She took a small piece of dough and rolled and rolled. That word is repeated. In stanza 13 and 16, boring, boring, boring. Then I mentioned you 3 times. So these are the instances of repetition in the poem. Enjambment. Running lines of poetry from one to the next without using any kind of punctuation or pause to indicate a stop. Stanza 1, line 3 and 4. Keep textbook with you as you watch the video and check where the enjambment is found. Enjambment is present. Line 1, in stanza 2, line 1, 2, 3, 4. In stanza 3, line 3 and 4. And stanza 4, line 1, 2, 3, of course in 4 also. Stanza 10, line 1, 2 and 3, and of course stanza 11, line 1 and 2, you find enjambment here, the continuity are the running lines. And simile is being used, I have just told you. Comparison using as or like. If you use as or like to compare two things, then that's what you call simile. In stanza 2, the children look like bear's cubs, and I explained you. Children compared to bear's cubs because they wore that such a funny dress. Stanza 9, baked it thin as a wafer. Baked it thin as a wafer, as thin as a wafer means she wanted to make a cake with a little dough, very thin, very delicate cake. That's what you call as thin as wafer. So as is being used here. I showed you what a wafer is, kind of eatable. The children like it most. Cake is compared to a wafer here. Stanza 15, clothes were burned black as a coal. As black as a coal. As black as coal. As is being used here. So here in these instances, simile is being used. Okay. When you are watching this, you have to keep textbook and see the instances where different kinds of letter devices are being used to understand it thoroughly. Thank you. Have a nice day.